What you just saw there is Poland sending its military into the streets in Poland to show force after Russia sent dozens and dozens of Shahed drones over Poland, which had to be shot down in an act of war, in an act of an invasion, which Donald Trump has refused to condemn. In fact, Donald Trump has taken the side, essentially, of Vladimir Putin there. And you have President Zelenskyy of Ukraine calling out Donald Trump's envoy to Ukraine to his face. And Trump's envoy is so dense that he thinks it's a compliment. And what Zelenskyy says in this clip, as the envoy was just sitting there, is he goes, "We want you to come more often, because when you show up, Putin stops bombing innocent Ukrainians, stops killing innocent Ukrainians while you're here in the areas that you are. So maybe we should just send you on a tour around all of Ukraine, and will make us all much safer." He's not really complimenting the envoy, Keith Kellogg, who was there, the envoy to Ukraine. What he was saying is Russia doesn't attack its own, basically, and that they view you as a friend, so they're not going after you when you're here. Watch Zelenskyy say that, and you'll see how Keith Kellogg responds. Here, play this clip of Zelenskyy.
Про це дійсно, пане генерале, кажуть щоразу, коли ви тут. Коли ви в Києві, Кіт Келлог, кияни точно можуть трохи виспатись. Ну, хотілося б, щоб ви їздили по всіх містах України.
And that was AI translated for you, so you can hear what Zelenskyy was saying in English. Here's what Keith Kellogg then posted. He goes, "The cat is a unique symbol for the Ukrainian people, one of security and safety. Since Keith sounds like cat in Ukrainian, the Ukrainians have nicknamed my role as Special Envoy Kellogg as the cat. When the cat visits Ukraine, Russia pauses its strike on civilians, giving them a few nights of peace, a peace that a strong America offers to other nations. As always, great visit and discussion with HUR General Budanov near the cat statue." They may be calling you a different name associated with cat. I don't know, but I'm not sure this is a compliment. And the security that America gives is that you show up for 2 days around a cat statue, and that's the security. How about a ceasefire? How about ending the war in 24 hours like you promised you would do? Because now the war is expanding. The cat, ridiculous. The cat, he calls himself the cat. What a ridiculous, pathetic thing to do also. And so he refers to himself as now. But now you have Russia invading Poland. Russia sent drones to Romania. The cat, what you gonna do? You're gonna meow? What are you gonna do about it? The cat, you're gonna show up and meow one more time? I mean, how ridiculous is this? Let me show you what Zelenskyy just posted. He goes, "Today, Romania scrambled combat aircraft because of a Russian drone in its airspace. According to current data, the drone penetrated about 10 kilometers into Romanian territory and operated in NATO airspace for around 50 minutes. Also today, Poland responded militarily to the threat of Russian attack drones." Meow, meow, cat. In fact, Russian drones have been in different regions of Ukraine all day, including the northern regions practically along the border with Belarus. According to preliminary information, Belarusian airspace was also used for entry into Ukraine's airspace toward Voin. The Russian military knows exactly where those drones are headed and how long they can operate in the air. Their routes are always calculated. This cannot be a coincidence, a mistake, or the initiative of some lower-level commanders. It is an obvious expansion of the war by Russia, and this is exactly how they act. Small steps at first, and eventually big losses. That is why action must always be preventative, based on the principle that there are no minor military threats from those who are accustomed to destroying the independence and lives of others. Russia is accustomed to this and must feel the consequences. And they're really calling out Romania there as well and saying, "You're not taking this seriously, Romania. You let that drone go over your airspace and you didn't shoot it down. You let it come into Ukraine. You let it go over your own airspace for about an hour. You were being tested by Putin and you absolutely failed the test." At least Poland sent their Air Force to shoot it down immediately. immediately. They did it quickly, but still a little bit slower than it needed to be done. I'll just say that. But Romania's response was very slow. Let me tell you what Russia is trying to do here as well. What Russia wants to do is they want Europe to now invest air defense in NATO nations, in Poland, in Romania, and then in other Eastern European NATO nations, and build air defenses there to try to delay air defenses from being built around Ukraine. That's one of Russia's tactics. Russia also wants to test NATO right now, test their resolve, sow division, as Donald Trump says things like, oh, it must be a mistake. And this is how Putin is surgically ripping NATO apart, because the more Donald Trump doesn't do anything. Article 4 is consultation of NATO. Article 5 is military support within NATO. If one NATO country is attacked, all NATO countries are attacked. What Putin is showing is that Donald Trump has given up on Article 4 or 5. It no longer exists to the United States. So Putin's showing how weak Trump looks on the world stage right there. I mean, when you saw Putin say this was not a mistake, this was deliberate, that was a message to Romania and Poland, but it was also a message to Donald Trump. Because here's the clip when Donald Trump said, I think it was a mistake. And we question, what's your reaction to Russia's drone incursion into Poland? Donald Trump's response, it could have been a mistake. Let's play it.
What's your reaction to Russian drone incursion into Poland?
Could have been a mistake. Could have been a mistake, but regardless, I'm not happy about anything having to do with that whole situation. But hopefully it's going to come to an end.
Then on Friday, Donald Trump was asked, what are you going to do about Putin? We saw those drones in Poland. Then Donald Trump's response is, I'm not going to defend anybody. But they were actually knocked out and fell into airspace. To which Poland's foreign minister responded, that's not true. There were dozens and dozens of drones that entered Poland airspace. But Donald Trump goes, I'm not going to defend anyone. Well, then what's the point of having America in NATO if you're not going to defend anyone? But then how about just defend the basic truth that those drones entered into Poland, that drones entered into Romania? But again, this is exactly what Putin wants, to test a resolve, and he's showing that Donald Trump won't do crap. Play this clip.
What are you going to do about President Putin? Because we just saw these drones in Poland.
Yeah, well,
more sanctions.
Thing, I mean, I'm not going to defend anybody, but the Poland's, they were actually knocked down and they fell into an area. But he shouldn't be close to Poland anyway.
Right.
So I solved, as you know, 7 wars. 7. I did so many, including Pakistan and India, but big ones.
And then you have Pete Hegseth. Hegseth is asked, well, what about Russia attacking Poland? What are you going to do? And his response, this is what MAGA Republican Dan Bacon says. Don Bacon says, he goes, Hegseth with some disgusting comments, he's an empty suit. And Hegseth's like, why would we touch these foreign countries like Poland? They're in NATO, you idiot. They're in NATO. Here, play this clip.
Power. We've projected power for a long time in far-flung places that had a nebulous connection to our own security in the homeland. We're securing the homeland.
Now, can I just remind us briefly of what former Vice President Kamala Harris said during the debate? She warned precisely of this, the same way I've showed you clips before of former Vice President Kamala Harris predicting exactly what was going to happen to Trump crashing the economy. She cited 16 Nobel laureates in economics, saying that's what's going to happen. But you don't frankly need a Nobel laureate to tell you what tariffs do. We know, we have experience. Anyway, here's what Harris has to say. Here, play this clip.
Our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine.
No, but here's the message that Donald Trump posted earlier yesterday morning. He says, a letter by Donald Trump. He goes, this is Biden and Zelensky's war. I'm only here to help stop it and save thousands of lives. And he goes on to say, if NATO does as I say, the war will end quickly and all those lives will be saved. If they do as I say, Donald Trump goes on to say that he won't do anything unless Europe stops buying oil from Russia and imposes sanctions. Europe has significant sanctions against Russia. Europe has basically weaned off of most Russian oil, not all, but most Russian oil, except for Hungary and Slovakia, who Donald Trump has publicly supported getting their oil from Russia. Donald Trump has written letters to Viktor Orban of Hungary and Slovakia saying, I'm upset that Ukraine is hitting those oil depots. By the way, in response to Donald Trump saying all of these things, I'll play right here. We'll throw some B-roll up for you all right now. You'll see throughout the evening into the morning, Ukraine has been hitting, even in St. Petersburg, Ukraine's been hitting oil refinery after oil refinery in Russia. So great work to Zelenskyy doing that. But as Jane Keeve explains, Trump's pathetic groveling to his Russian mentor has ushered in a golden age of massacres in Ukraine as the U.S. can't even bring itself to condemn Russian strikes on NATO allies. Russian attacks are larger than ever by miles. Americans have yet to comprehend the ramification of a president that sides with all enemies of democracy. Jane Keeve always puts it very wise, and you can see that graph right there. But by the way, you saw the cat meow meow, Mr. Kellogg. What did Kellogg say when he was speaking at the Council of Foreign Relations? What was this, like 5 or 6 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago? So Donald Trump promised to end the war in 24 hours, but he didn't say which 24 hours. This was all a joke. We didn't say which 24 hours. Here, play this clip.
Remember what President Trump said? He actually talked about the potential of getting territory back from the Russians. He said that. That's a public comment from him. So
which territory?
Pardon?
Can you tell us?
We didn't say. It's almost like, remember the president said he was going to end the war in 24 hours. We didn't say what day.
And then Keith Kellogg on January 12th, 2025, said he would need about 100 days. Then we would assess where we were. We get peace in 100 days. Here, play this clip.
We'll set the conditions for the president, and then he'll eventually get to a position where he'll be talking to President Putin and also President Zelenskyy as well. And I think they're going to come to a solvable solution in the near term. And when I say by the near term, I would like to set a goal on a personal level and professional level. I would say let's set it at 100 days and move our way back and figure a way we can do this in the near term to make sure that this solution is solid, it's sustainable, and that this war ends and so that we stop the carnage. And I think that's going to be very, very important to do. It's going to be important for our national security. It's a part of our vital national interest, and it's also good for Europe as well, and the globe as well.
These people are all such complete and utter phonies right here. But, perhaps the biggest phony of them all, Lindsey Graham, MAGA Republican Senator Lindsey Graham, he goes out there on Friday, all high and mighty, and he's like, we're going to start naming names of American politicians who don't support Ukraine. And he goes, we're putting forward strong legislation in the Senate that if passed, will designate Russia as a state-sponsored terrorist organization. Great, Lindsey Graham. Great. You know who doesn't support that legislation? Donald Trump. Okay? Your guy, your best friend, your golf buddy. Okay? Like Lindsey Graham, your whole thing is to be like you're a Russia hawk. A hawk. So you've got Kellogg, meow, the cat. And then you've all the kind of weird kind of animals, right? The hawk, quah, and then the cat, meow. So you're the Russian hawk, except that Donald Trump's the weakest on Russia ever. And not only weak on Russia, he's Putin's guy. He's basically turned the United States right now, currently, into a satellite of ours. Could you imagine if Obama had Marines roll out the red carpet on their knees for Putin as he laughed in the face of Americans on America Far? And so remember the moment, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down the wall. Putin's moment was in Alaska, laughing in the face of the United States as Sergei Lavrov was wearing a USSR, it's the foreign minister of Russia, was wearing a USSR shirt. They mocked the United States. They cemented that moment in Russian history forever, mocking the United States. And what do you do, Lindsey Graham? I'm going to name the names of the American politicians who don't support Trump. Trump, you idiot. But here's what he announces. Here, play this clip.
So there are, 4 countries under U.S. law that have the designation of being a state sponsor of terrorism. We're here today to say you need to add 1 more. So this legislation, if passed, would designate Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism under U.S. law until they return the children. If you want to vote no, we will make you famous. You need to vote. Thune and Schumer need to bring this bill up soon so we can tell Europe and the rest of the world, follow our lead. What does it matter to be a state sponsor of terrorism under U.S. law? Your economy is radioactive. You do business with Russia at your own peril. We have laws on the books that punish state sponsor of terrorism. It's hard to get on that list. Well, let me tell you, Russia's earned the right to be on this list. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll out our bill today. We're going to ask leaders of both parties to give us a chance to debate this and vote on it. And we want to put in motion right now a process that would lead quickly to Russia being a state sponsor of terrorism, telling everybody in the world who props up Putin, you're running afoul of U.S. law, and we're watching what you're doing, and you're going to pay a heavy price. It's one thing to go after their oil sales. We're doing that. But somebody needs to speak up for the children. We're doing that today. And we're going to have all of our colleagues lend their voice to our cause. And we're going to make Russia, under U.S. law, what they are. Terrorists. This is what terrorists do. They rape, they murder, they kidnap.